Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. I'd fuck me hard.
What are you doing?
I'm nothing. Just
You are wearing my robe.
I thought it was cool. I thought you'd be okay with me
And
wearing
you have my makeup on?
just a little bit.
Where's your dick?
Yeah, I tucked it back.
Oh my gosh, Joey.
What?
Are you trying to transition?
No,
Because if you do, like, it's totally fine. Like, I'll still love you.
No, I am not transitioning, okay? You ever seen that movie Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah. Are you saying you're a serial killer?
No, I am not a serial killer.
Please do not rub me in lotion.
I am a Silence of the Lambs reenactment enthusiast, okay? Whenever you go out of town to visit your mother, I get together with my friends and we reenact Silence of the Lambs.
Your friends do this too?
Yeah. I usually play Buffalo Bill. Todd from down the street, he's Clarice.
What?
And then Annie, it's also a gender swap too. We have a woman play Hannibal Lecter.
Okay. You're the only one that's not gender swapped?
I guess.
Okay.
Look, don't act like you don't have something weird too, okay? So
I mean, to be honest, I do.
Really? What is it?
So I actually am a serial killer.
So you've killed people?
No.
Oh, God.
Just cats.
So you just like the cats?
Yep.
Slay the cat. Slay the cat. Podcast.
Slay the cat is speaking truth. Slay the cat is proof. Here us talk your favorite film. Slay the cat is juiced. Slay the cat podcast. Slay the cat podcast. Slay the cat podcast. Slay the cat podcast.
What's up to all my skin suit seamstress out there? You are listening to Slay the Cat, a movie podcast. I am your host, Joey.
And I'm his wife, who rubs the lotion on its skin because I don't want to get the hose again. Erin.
Oh my God, are you saying that I give you the hose?
Maybe.
Oh.
Please don't. No. That was the water hose spraying.
Oh my God. Okay. Cool. Tight.
Cool. Tight.
All right. So today, guys, we're going to be talking about the 1991 classic.
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Us's.
Of the we.
Silence of the we. You may not know this. I don't know if you've been listening to this a long time or not, but our last name is Lamb.
What?
Yeah, that is my legal born last name.
And that's my married name.
Yeah, you married into it.
I'm married good. I'm married up.
Guess what, guys? We're not going to be silent.
Nope. Never.
This whole podcast hangs on the idea that we are not silent.
Yep, exactly.
There would be no content.
If we were silent, it would sound like this. And that's no fun.
Yeah, nobody likes dead air. All right, so we're going to be talking about Silence of the Lambs, but first, Erin, who's your favorite serial killer?
Like real person?
Yeah. I know it's kind of weird to ask who's your favorite because it implies that you like that person.
My favorite. God. I think I'm going to have to say the Candyman from Houston.
Dean Corll. Oh, yeah.
Not because of his crimes, but just because he's from Houston. And he actually lived pretty close to my mom.
Yeah, like 6 blocks away.
So I think his...
Well, he didn't live there. He lived there for a short period of time.
Very short.
The famous house that he was killed in.
Yes. My mother lived down the street from them.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because
Yeah.
I had uncles that were like the peak age that he went after at that time. So I had one uncle that was that age.
Yeah.
So it is so crazy that they like.
But
I mean,
he got all his victims from the Heights neighborhood.
Yeah.
So your uncles had nothing to worry about.
Yeah, but I mean,
Still
it's
scary.
still spooky.
It's scary as hell to think about.
Yeah. So I think that's why I like that story. And like, I know of the areas that he went to. Like, even he buried some bodies at Sam Rayburn, which I lived really close to growing up in my small town. So,
Yeah.
so it's, I mean, I know a lot of the places that he was at. And so it kind of puts it closer to home and it makes it a little spookier.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of more intriguing because I know the landmarks that they're talking about when people talk about his case.
Right.
Who's your favorite serial killer?
Dean Corll is definitely there because hometown guy, right? And also it's very scary since I was a little boy growing up here. So to think about like a guy going after boys my age, even though I wasn't alive at the time, it's scary to me, right?
Yeah.
And then also he moved around a lot. Like I think he moved places like 5 times a year.
Yeah.
To keep suspicion off of him, but
That makes
nobody
sense.
was suspicious of him. The
Which is
cops
so
didn't know,
crazy.
right? Yeah. So he lived all over town. I found out where the boat shed is that he buried those boys at.
Yeah.
But it's a business now, and I'm not going to say which one it is because I don't
Yeah.
want people to go there. But I know where that is, and it's not far from where I grew up. And yeah, it's just a creepy story. And then the other one, he's not. I'm not going to say like he's my favorite, but he's the one that I've done the most. Like I've read the most stuff about him, or I've listened to the most stuff about him. Is Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, okay, that's what I was thinking. Your favorite was going to be.
Yeah,
just because like you like the number 213, and is it 213 or is it 214?
213.
213.
Yeah, but that's because there's a Slayer song called 213.
Oh well, okay.
Yeah, but
also like, isn't that song about him?
yeah,
So
but I didn't know that when I first heard it.
okay. Well.
But anyway, yeah, he's the most fascinating to me because of the psychological parts of it.
Yeah.
And then
I would agree with that.
And it really angers you listening to it because he kept falling through the cracks over and over and over again. Like there could have been enough intervention that he would have never killed anybody.
Yeah.
If he had started seeing a therapist at a young age and like confessed, like his actual thoughts, there's probably could have been some intervention that could have happened to stop it. But just failures of society over and over and over again.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no.
I feel like I don't know as much about Jeffrey Dahmer as you do, but I think a lot of people do know a lot about him. Like the name is just synonymous with serial killers. Like it's one of the top 3 I feel like people think of.
Yeah,
when you
I
say,
think
hey,
so.
name 3 serial killers, they're going to name Jeffrey Dahmer, they're going to name Ted Bundy, and
maybe Gacy.
maybe, John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. But he also had the most people who were willing to talk about him. Like people that knew him were willing to talk about him and stuff. But he just kept slipping through the cracks over and over again. Like his parents, teachers, police. The famous story about one of his victims escaped and these 2 women found him and they tried to tell the police that he was a child and that he had been kidnapped, but the police didn't do anything about it.
Crazy.
Right? Because the police are like, they're icky homosexuals and we don't want to deal with it. So they gave him back and the kid was like 14 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was really fucked up.
They give him back to Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yeah. Jeffrey Dahmer told him that he was drunk and he had just drilled a hole in his head.
What?
Yeah. So, yeah. Just complete and utter incompetence on the side of the
Absolute
cops.
incompetence.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's real fucked up.
Even like if you were drunk, why the fuck would you drill someone's head in? Like that's the other thing is like the cops listened to him say, I was drunk and I put a hole in his head.
No, he was saying that his partner was drunk. His victim. He was saying his victim was drunk and he was stumbling around and disoriented because he was drunk, but really it's because he drugged him and then tried to drill a hole in his head.
Yeah. They didn't see the hole. I guess maybe he did it in a place where
Yeah, I don't know. But also another fucked up thing was, I think that victim was the brother of somebody that Jeffrey Dahmer had molested and gotten caught.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Yeah. It's pretty messed up.
Yeah. I don't,
whole story.
I need to listen to some Jeffrey Dahmer stuff. I know that there was a TV show, but you said it wasn't super accurate.
No, it was fairly accurate. They took some liberties, but I just didn't think it was good.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think it was kind of what's wrong with true crime these days. But yeah, that Netflix Jeffrey Dahmer special was garbage, I thought.
Oh, okay.
The only person I liked in it was Niecy Nash. Her performance was really good. But
she was the woman that like caught it, like was his neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think she was on Reno 911.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but she turned in a really great performance on that. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason to watch it, I think.
Cool.
All right, so Silence of the Lambs, Erin. This is a movie that I know you've seen a bunch of times.
A lot of times.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Because usually you do movies on here that you don't have ever seen and sometimes have never even heard of.
Yeah, a lot of times. But I think this is just such an iconic movie, and it's like one of the most well-known horror movies. And it's not like insanely gruesome. I think like the tellings of what happens are pretty gruesome, but like overall visual, it's not like a bunch of like blood all over the place. Like, you know, it was one of the first horror movies I feel like I saw, and I was like, I'm not terrified out of my wits because I was very scared of horror movies when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people call this a horror movie, but I don't think it is. Mm-hmm. I think it's a thriller.
Yes, I think that's why I was okay with it, because I mean, there's a horror aspect to it because there's a freaking murderer and a cannibal in the movie, but overall, it is more of a thriller.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it falls better into the thriller category than it does horror, even though it is scary.
Yeah.
Because, you know, your serial killers are scary.
And I think, honestly, like the only reason it kind of does fall in that horror genre is towards the end when they're in the night vision part. Like that, I think that's like the biggest like horror film feel.
Oh, yeah.
Of the whole movie.
Yeah.
So watching the whole movie and up to that point, I always forget that even happens, that he goes into night vision, which we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
But every time I think about the movie, that's not the part I remember. Uh-huh. I remember her being in the dark, but I don't remember him like seeing her.
Yeah, there's a few things that I always forget in this. But you mentioned a second ago about the gore of it, right? Mm-hmm. This is one of those movies that when you think about it, even after you just watched it, it kind of has this Mandela effect on you.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh man, that movie was so gory and gruesome.
I know.
But then you watch it again and you're like, a lot of it was implied.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why I didn't feel so grossed out about watching it.
Yeah. And the descriptions are really scary. Can you do that, Joliet?
Can you turn the oven on to 425? I think it's 425. Look at the pizza box. Our daughter's going to be cooking for us tonight in the freezer. Anyways,
do you remember the first time you saw it? How old you were or anything like that?
I was in high school. I want to say I was like 16 or 17. Mm-hmm. I think that was the first time I saw it. And then but it didn't really register that was that movie until later on. When I was an adult and I watched it again, I was like, oh, I've already seen this. Okay. Because I didn't think that I saw it. And then I watched it. I think the first time I actually saw it, like my dad was watching it and I was like, kind of like watching in the distance. So I wasn't sitting with him watching it, and it was just kind of like on, and I was passing by and I was like, this isn't that bad. And I was a teenager at the point, so it wasn't as scary. But even when I was a teenager, I was scared of horror movies. Right.
I remember when this movie came out and what a phenomenon it was. I was 6 when it came out. Pow.
Bam. Pow, pow.
So I remember when this movie came out. I was only 6 years old.
Yeah.
But it was such a huge hit that I saw commercials for it and I saw posters for it. That image of Jodie Foster's face with the moth over her mouth.
Yeah.
Was so iconic. Like, that was burned into my brain.
Oh, yeah, that symbol of the moth over the mouth is such a iconic symbol.
Yeah, and I don't know who designed that poster, but kudos to you.
Yeah,
because
they killed it.
It's scary, just that poster looking at it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see it as a kid, but I was too scared. I was like, And I even remember we went on vacation to Galveston.
Yeah.
We took like a weekend trip to Galveston, and they had HBO in the room. Mm-hmm. And one of the movies on HBO was Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of want to see it, but I kind of don't.
Aww.
And then...
how old were you when that happened?
6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and... because it came out on February 14th. So I turned 6 the same month it came out.
Wow.
But
that's so crazy too, because like a lot of times in February you'll get like the doo-doo movies.
Yeah, they didn't have any faith in this movie. That's why they released it.
So it was a hit.
It was a huge hit. Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, but I wouldn't see it for many years later, and I even tried to rent it one time, and my mom wouldn't let me rent it.
Really?
Yeah, even though she would let me watch like all the horror movies I wanted, and then I was like, "Why won't you let me watch this?" And she's like, "It's just," and I realized like, no, it scared her. Like she was too afraid to watch it.
Okay.
So I didn't get to see it for a long time, and I finally got to watch it, and I was like, I think that was the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
It is one of my top favorite movies. That's why I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, me
and
too.
anytime you put it on, I'm like, I want to watch it with you.
It's just so good. Anytime it's on streaming for free, I just have to watch it.
Yeah. It's one of those have to sees anytime you can.
Yeah. Okay, so the movie came out in 1991, February, which is a weird month.
I wasn't even born.
Yeah. But it had a budget of $19 million, and the box office was $272 million.
Wow.
So it made a lot of money against the budget, right? I mean, today you hear about these movies that make, $1 billion. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case back then. Like, movies rarely made that much money. This is a lot of money for such a low budget film. And it was made independently, too. Mm-hmm. It wasn't backed by a major studio. And it was such a huge hit also with critics and everyone. It was one of 3 movies to win all the major categories at the Academy Awards, right? So it won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Actress.
Wow.
The only other movies that have won all those are It Happened One Night, which is a movie from 1934, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, that's another really good movie.
Yeah, which is a movie that we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a big deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the funny things, when I was reading about it, it said that they approached Sean Connery to play Hannibal Lecter. Can you imagine that?
Hello, Clarice.
Yeah. A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Yeah.
That's how that would go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, this movie is... Empire ranked it 48th on their list of 500 greatest movies of all time. The American Film Institute has it ranked as 65th in the greatest film in American cinema, as well as 5th greatest most influential thriller film. So this movie has a lot of accolades.
Yeah. And it's not surprising.
No, it's not. And all the other movies that came out around it kind of suck.
What are some other movies that came out that same year?
Well, I mean like the prequels and the sequels and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like Red Dragon, Manhunter, Hannibal. Hannibal Rising is dog shit.
I think I've seen I think I saw Hannibal. But I don't remember all of it. I just know that Hannibal Lecter was in the movie.
Yeah. The movie is about him.
Yeah.
I've only seen it once, and I hated it. I've seen Red Dragon a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm. You were watching it the other day, actually.
Yeah. I really like Red Dragon. It's not nearly as good as Silence of the Lambs. Mm-hmm. Now, if Silence of the Lambs didn't exist, if that movie never got made, I think everybody would talk about how good Red Dragon is.
Yeah.
But when you compare it to its predecessor, it's hot garbage. Mm-hmm. But I think it's pretty good. And they got some good actors to be in it. All right. Any other thoughts on Silence of the Lambs, just generally?
Well, one of the things about this movie is that they have some really good one-liners. Like some moments, like these people, like, I don't know if it's just their delivery or if it's the line, like what's being said. But there are some really iconic lines in this movie. Yeah. And I think a lot of people reference this movie so often, like so much. It's insane.
Yeah, there was not many people talk about this movie anymore, but there was a spoof made of it called Silence of the Hams.
Oh, there's a musical of it. It's called Silence.
Yeah, I read about that too. I would love to see both of those. Yeah. I don't think that they do that musical anymore, though, do they?
I don't think so.
I think
it was like a independent group that created this musical, kind of like Triassic Park.
Yeah,
how it was like a small group that did it. I think it was the same thing. I've seen this. Like, there's a group that did Silence, and then there's a group that did like one of the Saws as a musical.
Oh, really?
And they're making fun of it the whole time. So
yeah, I mean, maybe people at home who are listening to this don't know, but they try to make a musical out of everything.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to throw something out the wall to see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the movie is funny though. There's a lot of like really funny parts, but if you're not thinking about it, it doesn't really come off that. But I've watched it so many times now. Like when he tells the senator, like, "Love your suit."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when Clarice is like, her friend is like, "Lecter escaped. What's going to happen? Like, are you afraid for your life?" And she's like, "No, he won't come after me. He would consider that rude."
Yeah.
That's so funny. And she's not afraid at all.
No, yeah.
Yeah. Something that's really cool about this movie is that, this is, it's Jodie Foster's movie, right? It's all about her and her dealing with her childhood and the death of her father. And there's a very subtle shift in her character because, the main character is supposed to have an arc in a film. But I was thinking about it this time. It's like so subtle.
Yeah, it's very subtle. I think it's just her coming into her own.
Yeah, that's all it is. And they don't have to hit you over the head with it. She just feels so much more confident at the end of the movie. Yeah.
I mean, even with like the line of her friend being like, "Oh my gosh, he escaped," and she's like, "He's not going to come after me."
Right.
It's just like, so she was so confident.
Yeah.
And like she knew how the mind she was studying, how it worked. And so she knew how to read it and knew how, like, she just believed full-heartedly that he's not going to come after her.
Right.
He thinks of me somewhat as a friend, which is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, he says the world is more interesting with you in it or something like that. In Hannibal, I think there's some sort of, they make up something about like him being in love with her or something like that, which I'm like, oh my God, are we really turning this into a love story?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing about this movie that I was thinking about when we were watching it was how even the most minor characters have a really big significance in it.
Yeah.
So like Barney, the caretaker at that prison that Hannibal Lecter's in, like he doesn't have a very big part.
Yeah.
But you like seeing him, and you feel like
he fills out the movie. He makes it feel more real.
Yeah. Yeah,
like the agents, like her friend agent.
Yeah.
Like she's not a very big part, but like without her, it'd be like, it's a little. There's less.
Yes.
There's less to it.
Yeah, it's like when you cook and you're adding seasonings to it and stuff. Like you don't need those characters there, but it makes the food better. Yeah. Or it takes it from okay to great.
Yeah.
By having them there.
Well, I think also like the actors in it, like they did a really good job with what they were given in creating those relationships and connections within the story. So I think that's what really delivers this, because I mean, when you think about any kind of visual media, whenever it comes to like plays or movies or musicals or anything, the relationships are what you're seeking.
Right.
So even if someone is the best actor, but they don't create a relationship with anyone on stage, you could care less about them because you don't have a connection to them because they're not making relationships. And so like, that's why they were such good characters and they seem like so important to the story, even though they're not that important,
right,
is because they created those connections and those relationships and made them have depth.
Right. Yeah. And that was, casting good actors,
Yeah,
of course.
absolutely.
Yeah. And then also the writer and the director actually giving them something.
Yeah.
Like even those bug guys are pretty great.
Bug guys.
The guy,
oh yeah, they're fun. Yeah, I can't think of a character in it that I'm like, they shouldn't have been in this movie.
Yeah.
Like all of them just fit well.
Yeah, I've been listening to the audiobook of it, and they're obviously the book is longer.
Yeah.
But all the stuff that they took out of the book, I was like, yeah, that really makes sense that you would take that out.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole storyline in the book about Crawford, the head FBI guy that she's working with. Like his wife is dying in the book. And that's completely gone from the movie. But it's like, yeah, you don't really need that. It would just make the movie overblown.
Yeah, or longer.
Yeah, because there's already a lot of characters in it.
Yeah.
So it would be a little bit too much. And also another weird thing I picked up from the book was Hannibal Lecter in the book has 6 fingers on one hand. And I was like, well, the only way you could do that in a movie is
prosthetics.
Prosthetics, which would look bad.
Yeah. Or
you would have to hire a 6-fingered actor.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you'd be able to find someone like that, but pretty interesting. All right. Have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we can get into the movie.
All right, let's get into it. The first thing that comes up is the Orion production bumper, which is one of my favorite from the 80s and 90s. I used to, when I'd go to the movies with my dad, I'd remember seeing the stars form Orion. Like, I always thought it was so cool for some reason. But it opens up with Claire, and she's running through the woods. She's got on a sweatsuit.
Yeah, and she's like, is it raining in this scene?
No,
or
I
it's
think
just kind of muddy.
It's kind of
Well, she's
drizzly.
outside.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the Pacific Northwest. I don't know where they filmed it though.
Something that I like, one of the first notes I put, it was like, Clarice is not a really common name you hear anymore, and I'm wondering how common it was when the movie came out. But just like Clarice is not a super common name anymore.
I don't think that's ever been a super common name, but it's not like some.
It's not weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think of Clarissa Knows It All, which is
I remember that show,
a TV show from Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I remember when that came out. I briefly had a crush on Clarissa.
Well, Melissa Joan Hart was really pretty when she was younger. I mean, she's still beautiful, but
I don't remember what she looks like.
She's like blonde and she's cute.
Yeah, I don't know.
I also had a crush. I'm just kidding. So I was like, it's an interesting name because you can't. It's hard to forget that name because like you don't hear it often. So I think they did a good, like the whole movie overall. The character names, like the choices that they made, were really good.
Yeah.
Because you can't forget Clarice, and also everyone. Like her last name is Starling. That's a fun Clarice Starling. It's such a really cool name.
It sounds like an FBI agent too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All this is from the book. Like this movie, one of the things I like about it is it's very true to the book. Like you can tell if you listen to the audiobook or read the book, you're going to be like, wow, like the director and whoever adapted it for screen are like really, really liked what the author did.
Yeah.
It was written by a guy named Thomas Harris. But yeah, they're very. They didn't change names. I don't think there's anything in the movie that they added just for the movie.
I don't think so either.
They took away.
Well,
some
I mean,
stuff.
I don't know the book, so
yeah, I've only read the book 1.5 times.
1.5.
Yeah, because I started after we watched it. I started listening to it, but
yeah, she's an FBI agent. But she's not even she's not fully in the FBI. She's in training.
Yeah, she's in training at Quantico.
Which I also forgot.
You forgot that?
Yeah. Oh. Well, I mean, like, there's like little things that I forget. And when I watch it again, I'm like, oh, yeah. So, I mean, like her being, I guess I just forgot that she was not fully an agent yet. She was just in training. That's the only thing I forgot. I mean, there's other things that I forget, but I forget a lot of things about movies.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I do too. I mean, I think I've just seen this movie a lot more than you.
I think so.
But yeah, I mean, whenever I watch a movie I haven't seen in a long time, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this scene. I forgot about that. So
yeah, so she's running through the woods and like kind of training or just doing like an obstacle course. And is it the girl that comes up or is it a guy?
I think it's one of the instructors. It's like, Crawford wants to see you. And
so she walks into the building and...
she gets in the elevator with a bunch of men, and this is the first time you realize, oh, she is a woman in a man's world. Mm-hmm. Like most FBI agents, especially around this time, are probably going to be men.
Yeah. And she gets into his office, and he's not... They were like, hold... Sir, our dog is... I think he's barking at a cat or a squirrel outside.
Yeah.
He never barks.
This is so weird. Our dog, we have an Italian Greyhound, and we got him because they don't make a lot of noise. And he's currently making a lot of noise.
His little growl is, he's like,
here, I'm going to try to get him.
Okay. Maybe shut the window. Anyway, so she's going up to his office, and in this scene, he's not up there yet. And they're like, oh, just wait for him. And we see on the wall, Bill kills Fifth. And so this kind of sets up the whole idea of Buffalo Bill, and like kind of just starts that seed in your brain.
Right. Yeah. So she goes to see Crawford, and he's like, oh, I remember when I did something in some class you were taking in college, and you grilled me really hard about this thing. And, you don't really know why she's there, but he says like, oh, I want you to go and interview Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah. And she asks him like, why do you want me to do this? Like she's trying to figure out why he wants to send her specifically. But, he's kind of just like, see what he has to say. Like usually whenever people go there, he kind of closes off, see if you can make him open up.
Right.
And he doesn't say that there's any connection to Buffalo Bill. I think she even asks, and he's like, no, it's just...
Yeah. He just basically says, like, he won't ever talk to anybody, but I think if I send you there, he might try to open up.
Yeah.
And she sees pictures on the wall of, like, the Buffalo Bill murders. Mm-hmm. And when he says, he tells her that I want you to go talk to Hannibal Lecter, she says Hannibal the Cannibal.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a subtle way of like dropping like, oh, this guy's a murderer too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I like what he says, like, don't tell him anything personal. You don't want this guy in your head.
Yeah.
Right. Which is like, okay, this guy, he eats people. Mm-hmm. He's locked in prison for life.
And he can infiltrate your brain.
Yeah. So you're going in there. We haven't even seen him yet. Mm-hmm. And like, this dude's fucking scary.
Yeah. So one of my questions for this whole moment was like, do they do this often? Do they take field academy agents into these kind of scenarios where they're going to do interviews with people, or are they just at this training center?
Are you asking me?
Well, I mean, yes and no.
Oh, I mean,
like that's what popped into my head. Like, is this normal? And I was like, I don't think it is normal. But
no, this there's no way they would do this with a trainee.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so compelling, right, from the beginning. But I don't think they would ever send someone who's just training to interview like one of the worst criminals of all time. But I think that's why the story is compelling. Yeah. The author, I think his story is based on like he went to some hospital and there was a doctor seeing people, and then he found out that the doctor who was seeing people, and that was like a medical doctor, not a psychologist, was like a murderer. But since he was in the prison, they're like, okay, you can treat the other prisoners if you want. And that's what gave the author Thomas Harris the idea for Hannibal Lecter in the story.
Okay.
That there's a psychologist serial killer who's in prison, and then because he's throughout the movie he's like treating Clarice Starling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
which is kind of a cool juxtaposition.
Yeah.
So she leaves and she goes to the...
It cuts straight to the prison that
the
Lecter
facility.
is locked up in Baltimore. And there is a sniveling little shit named Chilton, Dr. Chilton.
Yeah, and he is, I guess, the psychiatrist of the facility, or he's some type of doctor.
Yeah. He might be studying the inmates. I don't know. They never really say what he is.
But we find out later that Hannibal hates him.
Yeah.
But in that first moment where she meets him, he hits on her.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you're so pretty. And he starts talking about how beautiful she is.
Yeah, he's like, they've sent a lot of agents over here, but none as more as attractive as you. He's like trying to be smooth.
And then he like tries to ask her out on a date, and she's like, oh, I'm leaving actually. So so she picks up on it quick. So you see like how smart and intelligent she is.
Yeah, you from the very first moment, like being in Crawford's office and her like observing everything, you can tell that she has an investigative mind.
Yeah.
And she can tell what people's intentions are right away. But he says something like, Baltimore can be a really great city if someone who knows it can show you around. So he's like, he's trying to be like, I'm that guy. He's trying to be
show you all the nice things about Baltimore. So then she's like, well, I can't. And then he's like, okay, well, let's go see him. And they're going through this list of rules. Is this where she meets the Barney?
Yeah.
So
they do like a walk and talk through the hallways, and he's telling her, and then he's telling her all these rules and all these things,
which makes Hannibal even scarier because he's like, you can't don't even touch the glass, don't get too close to the glass, you can't have your belt or anything. Like there's so many rules to protect her from this man who's behind a glass wall.
Yeah. And this is all like the dialogue is all really good. And you're not thinking like, oh, this is exposition that they're giving you. But he tells the story about how Lecter pretended to have like cardiac arrest or something. And then when they take him to the infirmary, he attacks the nurse and like took one of her eyes.
Her ears. And, I want to say it was an ear.
Oh, I don't remember. I know it was definitely her tongue.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, during the whole thing, his heart rate never got above 90 or something like that. And you're like, what the fuck? That's like one of those monkey attacks.
Yeah.
Like that famous thing where that chimp attacked that woman. Oh, scary.
Yeah. So the whole, like you go in and your heart is racing, but it's not like disturbing visually. So she's walking down this hall and there's a bunch of men and they Barney's like, if you need anything, just come back, I'll open it up right up.
Yeah.
I'm here.
And it's funny because when he passes her off to Barney, you immediately feel safer with Barney and more comfortable with him. And she gets rid of Chilton by saying like, well, you said Lecter really hates you, so it would probably be a good idea if you didn't come any further with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, good, smart way to get rid of him.
Our dog.
Our dog. He's still a puppy. He's crazy.
But he's cute crazy. He's not like destroying the house crazy.
No, he's too small.
He's too little.
We took him to the vet today.
He weighs 9 pounds.
9 pounds.
Little baby. But I don't think he's going to get much bigger. Maybe 10 pounds.
He might get to 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Maybe 9.5. I don't know. But.
Which I'm fine with. He's a cute little baby. Yeah. Anyways, so she gets like he closes the door and locks it because if Hannibal comes out, like they need to protect the rest of the if somehow he got out, they have to protect the rest of the prison.
Yeah.
So he locks her in and she's walking down this hall and everyone's behind bars. And she's walking by these men and they're staring at her. And this one man, he like whispers,
Miggs.
Miggs, he's right next door to, Hannibal. He says something kind of under his breath and I didn't really hear what he said.
Yeah. You asked me to rewind it and put the subtitles on.
Yeah, because I couldn't hear what he said. And he says, I can smell your cunt.
Which I say to you every night before bed, right?
I hope you can't smell it.
I just lean over and whisper in your ear, Erin, I can smell your cunt.
He does not. So anyways, and then she goes up to Hannibal's pen, I guess.
Cell.
His cell. Yeah, that's what it's called. And he asks her, what did Mig say? And she's very blunt. And she's like, he said, I can smell your cunt.
Yeah, I think she's so blunt because she's trying not to...
give him anything.
Yeah, but also like not reveal that she thinks if she talks too much, her voice might shake or it might show, but... You can see it on her because she's such a brilliant actor that she is scared.
Yes.
But she's doing a good job of hiding it. But of course, Hannibal Lecter is a psychologist. He's going to know, no matter how good she is at hiding it.
But then he says, I myself cannot, which I thought was really funny.
This is so brilliant for so many reasons. One, it's kind of funny. For him to say, like, I can't.
And also, we've had so much to say about this movie. And this is like the first 10, 15 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like, it comes right out the gate. You have so much information that you're getting. But it's all relevant and it fills out the story. It makes it feel real.
Yeah, this whole movie is like a cornucopia for your senses. Like there's little details in everything. And you want to like get, what is that word? Like engaged with it.
You want to sink your teeth in.
Sink into it. Yeah. Like there's just so many little things. And this is really smart, I think, on the writer, director, whatever, that they've really built up who Hannibal Lecter is.
Yeah.
And he's this psychopath who kills people and eats them and shit. And the first thing he says to this woman is like, no, you don't smell bad.
No.
And then he tries to smell her. Like he smells her through the holes in the thing. And he's like, you wear this kind of lotion and all this. And you're like, wait, this isn't the guy
that I was
expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That he's sophisticated, right? They let that part, you find that out for yourself.
Yeah.
Which I think is really great.
Which is another really great, like, reason that makes him even scarier is because he's capable of so much, but he produces this air of him that is so sophisticated and well likable. Which, I mean, that's the psychologist's brain that he has. So he knows how to make himself presentable to people.
Yeah, and also like he's got this air of like high class and high society because he was like reading a fashion magazine or something when she comes in.
And then he starts reading her and he's like, I see that you like have like this nice suit or like this nice jacket and these nice pants, but your shoes are cheap.
Right, yeah.
And like he's like kind of reading her and she's like, okay, he sees everything about me. And so she tries to get him to answer this like questionnaire that she wanted him to have.
Yeah, but before the questionnaire, she sees his drawings and he says there's some drawings of Belvedere or something in Italy or something.
Yeah, he says he like doesn't have a view, so like all he has is his memory.
Right.
And so he draws these things because he wants a view.
Yeah, and so this is kind of this hint and later in the movie it becomes a bigger deal because they want to catch the serial killer, so they make a deal with him like, oh, we'll give you the view that you want.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the first hint of that.
Also, he also is the first one. He's the one that brings up Buffalo Bill because she doesn't think she's there for Buffalo Bill.
Right.
And he says like, Crawford must be very busy if he's sending a little lowly trainee to come interview me. It's probably about Buffalo Bill.
And she says, no, it's not. Like, I'm here to learn from you, and I want you to fill out this questionnaire.
Yeah. And then he asks her, why is he named Buffalo Bill? Because the papers won't say why.
Yeah. And it was just a bad joke from the homicide unit that was investigating the murders. It was derived from that.
But, so he reads her and is like, you have like a cheap purse and you got nice shoes. But I can hear your accent because in the whole time she's got a pretty thick accent, in the whole movie. And is this like Jodie Foster's actual?
No, she's doing a West Virginia accent.
Okay.
She's doing a good one too.
Yeah, because I couldn't tell that it was not real.
I lived in North Carolina for 3 years, and I worked with quite a few people from West Virginia, and she's doing the accent pretty accurately, I would say.
Yeah, she's doing a great job in this part.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've never seen Silence of the Lambs and maybe you don't want to, you can go to YouTube and watch this one scene, and it's just a master class in acting.
Yeah.
Like, both of these people won Academy Awards for this, and you can see why.
He then calls her a rube. What is a rube?
It's like a poser or a dumb person or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, he basically says, like, you try to shed your accent and, like, you spent your childhood wanting to run away from home and all this other stuff.
Yeah. And she's like, you're very perceptive.
Yeah.
But can you point that at yourself?
Yeah.
And he kind of gets a little upset and he like pushes this drawer at her so that he can get the
I think he passed that
questionnaire
back at that point. Anyway, it pisses her off when she comes back at him like that and challenges him. It pisses him off. And that's when he delivers that famous line about the last person who challenged me, like I ate them.
I ate his liver.
Yeah.
With some fava beans.
Yeah.
And a nice Chianti.
Yeah. And then that's when he's like, go back to the FBI. And he turns his back to her. Yeah.
Fly, starling, fly, fly, fly.
And then this is the part where she leaves. And as she's leaving, Miggs throws...
All of the inmates are going crazy.
Yeah, because they haven't seen a woman in forever.
Yeah.
And they're also fucking nuts. But,
yeah.
So Miggs throws semen on her.
Yeah.
His own semen.
Yeah, he's jerking off. And you see him like naked laying in the bed. And she's like walking by. And then, I don't know what he yells at her, but he yells something to get her attention. And
something about him biting his wrist or something like that.
Oh, yeah. And then he flings his jizz at her.
Yeah, and it gets in her hair. And this is probably the scariest part of the whole movie, if you ask me. Having somebody throw their cum on you.
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather be skinned alive by Buffalo Bill.
And and then at this moment, like all of the inmates are yelling and screaming and going crazy. And Hannibal is like, Starling, come back. And then he mentions his previous patient, Moffat. And he was like, if you want information, look at Moffat.
Yeah.
Look for Moffat.
What was the first name? Do you remember?
I can't remember the first name.
Oh, I think he just said Miss Moffat.
Yeah.
But also there's something in there about like, we have a little bit of time because it's like, he's going to start jerking off again.
Well, I think the reason that he yells at her and he's like, you have this little bit of time is because it's so loud, like anything he says to her can't be heard by the psychiatrist that's probably been listening in on everything.
Oh, wow.
And even, what's his name?
Chilton?
Barney. Like no one can hear what he's saying because everyone's screaming.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that.
Oh, that's something that I've noticed since the beginning. Like he did it specifically at that point so that he could tell her something without other people listening in.
That's pretty smart. But what do you think? Because he was mad a minute ago. Mm-hmm. What do you think the change of heart was that he gave her that information after all? Because it wasn't just because they were making a lot of noise.
Oh no, yeah. I think that was all part of it. Like he knew that Miggs was jerking off next door. Granted, I don't know. We don't know if he would have done like flung the jizz on her. What I think is like he liked her and he wants her to come back. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, I was mad, but. Yeah, I was mad that you read me, but I'm also intrigued that you were confident enough to do that.
But also, I think he realizes that he can have fun with this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So he calls her back. It's like, well, I'll give her a little clue to see how, if she can come up with something.
Yeah. So she starts looking up Moffat. And his previous patient.
This is when she goes out. She's walking to her car, and she has a memory of her father coming home.
Oh, yeah.
And we find out that her father was law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a police officer.
Yeah. So you think, does she want to follow in the footsteps of her father? She must have looked up to her father. And it's very subtle, and they don't really, thankfully, they don't lean into it. I don't like flashbacks in movies most of the time. They're not very good. But then it shows her training at Quantico again. And this is the part where they're like clearing rooms and she gets killed. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, why are you dead? And she's like, I wasn't watching my danger area or whatever.
And he was like, you didn't check the corners.
Yeah, you didn't check the corners.
Which I guess might be the danger areas.
Yeah. And then they show her in her free time looking at microfiche, which I swear is only something that gets done in movies.
What is microfiche?
You know, they have the TV, and then they're like scrolling, and it's the newspaper projected on the TV. Yeah. That's microfiche because all newspapers are archived on like a film type thing, or at least they were. But I've never seen one of those in real life. I've never seen a microfiche machine.
So she is looking into his previous patients, and she realizes that the name is an anagram for a previous patient that he had. And so she goes and she's looking in this, I guess it's a storage unit, and she gets in a car.
Yeah, but first we find out Miggs died. Like Crawford tells her that Miggs, that Hannibal was whispering to him in his cell, and then he swallowed his tongue. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't really know how to feel about it.
I think she realizes that he manipulated Miggs to get back at him for throwing jizz on me. Yeah. That's what I think it was.
Yeah.
And so it kind of put her in her head like, oh, he's not, it's not that he likes me. It's that he's looking out for me for people that do me wrong. So he's, I guess, intrigued by me. Maybe. Which I think puts her in a place of like being like, okay, I'm doing something right.
I mean, it could be. They leave it vaguely enough that you could draw a lot of conclusions from it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think he did it just because he thinks that she won't come back if she's afraid that Miggs is there. So if he's dead, I can see that too. She doesn't have to worry about him throwing jizz on her, right? It's just because he's a psychopath. He's only going to do what serves him. Yeah. He doesn't actually want to protect her, you know. Mm-hmm. But I like that they left it open-ended enough that
he liked talking to her.
Oh, yeah, he did.
So I think that's kind of where I was going with it. He liked talking to her, so... But it's kind of like a mixture of both. I didn't think about because him doing it so that she wouldn't be afraid to come back.
Right. Because the thing about psychopaths is they need a lot of stimulation, like more so than normal people, because they don't have normal emotions. They can't just be happy about stuff. Yeah. So that's really why I think Hannibal Lecter is a well-written character, is because he actually is psychopathic. Mm-hmm. And they do weird shit like this.
But so she's looking around in a storage unit that she finds out was Hannibal Lecter's. And she gets in this car and she lifts up this little fabric, and you see a head inside a jar with like a bunch of liquid in it. And then I think we cut back to the prison again, right?
Yeah. She finds out about the storage unit and she goes, and there's like an old guy that meets her there, and she's asking him questions, but he's like, anonymity is important to my customers, so I don't really know anything. Mm-hmm. And she can't open the door. Like, the place hasn't been open in like 20 years.
Yeah.
So she gets a bumper jack, which I don't know how many people... Have you ever seen a bumper jack before?
No.
There's these old jacks, and you put it on the bumper, because bumpers of cars used to be made of metal. Mm-hmm. So you jack the car up from the metal bumper. But they were very dangerous. So that's why you don't see them anymore, because the car would roll over on people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you're not supposed to be under the car when you're changing the tire. Mm-hmm. So don't ever get under a car with a scissor jack. All right. So as you said, she finds a head in the car in the storage.
But one more thing about the jack. She says, she tells the old man, like, hey, if this like fails, this jack fails, call this number.
Yeah.
So that they can come get me.
Yeah. Call Jack Crawford. And she cuts herself shimmying under the door, too. But then, as you mentioned earlier, she finds a head in there. And you're like, holy shit, a head in a jar.
And you're like, oh my gosh, he cut this person's head off, and he did keep a trophy. Because earlier he says, I didn't keep any trophies.
Right, yeah.
Which you're thinking, oh, that was his patient. He cut their head off and kept it.
Right. But then she goes back to talk to Hannibal Lecter, and he says, I didn't kill him. Buffalo Bill did.
Yeah.
And the Buffalo Bill was with a patient.
And then that's how we discover that Hannibal knows who Buffalo Bill is.
Yeah.
But he said he wasn't his patient. It's just they were dating their patient, and so they've only saw them one time.
Yeah. So he doesn't know a whole lot of information about him. He doesn't even really, I don't think he knows his full name even.
I don't think so.
Yeah, because he's, we'll get to that later. But then also, Hannibal Lecter is like, talks about Crawford, and he's like, does Crawford want you? And you think that he imagines you in certain scenarios and certain sexual scenarios? And she's like, well, I don't really care what he thinks, and frankly, it's something Miggs would say. So she really comes at him hard right there. And
I think he likes how witty she is.
Yeah, he definitely likes her. He I think in Red Dragon we find out that he talks to Barney too. Like Barney is like studying psychology or something like that. So Hannibal Lecter likes talking to other people who are intelligent.
Yeah.
So he does.
And I don't think he thinks the psychologist that's in their facility is intelligent. And I think that's why he doesn't like him. Yeah,
he doesn't like Dr. Chilton because Dr. Chilton wants like all these accolades that he doesn't really deserve. That's part of his character. It's like he just wants to be famous. He wants to have his name on books and stuff like that. And this is the point where they says that he wants a view. He wants to be made a deal, and he can give more information about Buffalo Bill. And but she's like, I really can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
And he says, but he's already searching for his next victim. Right? And this is when we cut to
Buffalo Bill and his next victim.
Yeah. But she's
like
she's in her
groceries.
car. Okay, yeah. She's in her car, and she's driving along, and she's singing to, what is the name of that guy?
I have no idea.
Petty.
Tom Petty?
Tom Petty, that's it. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. She was an American girl.
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of another one.
That song.
I don't like Tom Petty. But the other day you were saying, like, that ZZ Top sounded like Bob Dylan.
What is that song I was singing?
Just got paid today.
Just got paid today.
But Billy Gibbons doesn't. Tom Petty sounds a lot
An
like...
American girl.
He sounds a lot like Bob Dylan to me.
I think they're both bad in different ways.
Okay. But ZZ Top is awesome.
Yeah, I guess.
And then this is when we see Bill using night vision.
Mm-hmm. So she parks in her apartment complex, and he has night vision on, and he's looking for her.
Yeah.
I don't know if he knows her.
No, he's definitely been spying on her and like stalking her because he needs a specific type of victim.
Yeah.
Like, remember that part where he says, like, "Are you about a size 14?"
Mm-hmm. No, I know.
Okay.
I know that he was looking for a specific size.
Yeah. But he doesn't know that she is a daughter of a senator. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know that.
But in this moment, he's lifting he like pretends to have a broken arm, and he's lifting a couch, and he's like really struggling with it. And so she's like, "Oh, well, do you need help?" And he's like, "Yeah, that would be so nice." And his voice is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember, but also forget that voice. It's hard to I couldn't do an impression of it, but it's hard to forget how it sounds.
Yeah, it's deep, and it's a whole thing in the book.
Muffled.
Yeah, muffled and deep, low. But what's funny, we were talking earlier about how true the movie is to the source material. Mm-hmm. The author describes both Lecter's voice and Buffalo Bill's voice. He says Lecter has a metallic rasp, and I don't remember what he said about Buffalo Bill's voice, but it's like even the filmmakers were like, "Yeah, we got to get their voices right," which I think is really cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he gets her in he was like, "Well, can you climb in and help pull it up?" And he pushes it all the way in. And then he asks her, "Are you a size 14?" Yeah. And then he hits her over the head.
Yeah. And he squeezes her in the back against the sofa so she can't get out, and then knocks her out. Now, if you are a connoisseur of serial killer stories, you would know this is what Ted Bundy used to do.
Yeah.
He would feign injury and then get a woman's sympathy. Yeah. So that's where that came from.
He was also... People say he was attractive. He wasn't attractive in my standards. But people would always say like, "Oh, he was an attractive man." So it was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine with helping them."
When they say he wasn't attractive, they mean he wasn't
ugly,
a creepy looking, fugly man.
He looked normal.
Yeah. And I think he was kind of handsome for his time for the 70s and not a movie star.
Yeah.
But also the 70s was a time when people used to hitchhike.
Yeah.
There was not as much stranger danger back then.
Oh,
so
no.
people were much more trusting. But he was also charismatic too. A lot of psychopaths are. Mm-hmm. And then he looks at her back and he sees on her clothes that she's a size 14. Mm-hmm. And then that's the end of that scene. And we cut to Quantico where they're doing some sort of weird boxing class. Some of the training in this, I'm like, why would the FBI be doing this? They're hitting punching bags.
So they can learn to fisticuffs in case something happens to their weapons.
I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't understand why they'd be doing that. And then when they show a car chase happening, they're training people how to do car chases. I don't really think that's something the FBI does either, but whatever. And
it's fun for the movie.
Yeah, Clarice has to go see Crawford because they have to fly to West Virginia because some fishermen, was it fishermen?
Well, isn't one of the bodies ended up there?
Yeah, he disposed of one of the bodies in West Virginia and it washed up in a river. Yeah. But I think some fishermen found it or something like that.
Yeah. So they go there to check out the body. Uh-huh. And when she goes there, they rub this stuff under their nose. I'm guessing it was like mint or something, so it kind of hides the smell of the decaying body. But they still, like, they all three wipe it under their nose, and then they take the body bag off, and they're all like, ugh, because it's just so, she's so putrefied.
Yeah. And she has skin cut out of her back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was exposed. I mean, she was exposed to all these elements, and I don't know how different a bloating body is, like from water to land. I don't know how like that affects it.
I don't know what happens to dead bodies.
Me either.
Thankfully.
I'm not a coroner.
Yeah. Well, she goes to West Virginia, and then on the way there, like, Crawford is talking to her, and he says his next victim, he usually hangs on to the victims for like 3 days before he kills them. So that's a clue to us. Like, now that the senator's daughter is kidnapped, she's only going to be alive for 3 days.
Yeah.
So that really adds to the suspense and ratchets it up. That's a sign of like more of a thriller than a horror film. It's like they've got this thing they've got to do, and they have a little bit of time to solve the problem.
Yeah. And when they're in the air, like the helicopter, this is also when she says to him, like, am I meeting with Hector about Buffalo Bill? And
that's right.
And that's when Crawford tells her, like, it is. But if I would have told you that in the beginning, he would have picked you up immediately.
Yeah, he would. If I had sent you in there with an agenda, Electra would have known. But she's still kind of hurt by that. You can tell. But he is right.
Yeah. I think she understands that he's right too.
Yeah. But she is very much like trying to play the part as like a full FBI agent. And I don't think she likes that. She is also kind of being played by him a little bit. And then she gives her profile in the car of the killer.
Yeah. And
then they meet in the funeral home, and there's a bunch of male police officers there. And now this is in her home state. She's back in West Virginia, and they've got all these cops around. And when they're going to identify the body, they need to get rid of all these cops. So she jumps into her like West Virginia thing to get her accent and her way of speaking. And then she has a flashback to her dad's funeral.
And this is where we see, like, because she goes into this one of the rooms, and I guess there's a dead cop there also, because like she goes into one of the rooms where they're having the funeral, and there's cops around.
Oh, right.
So it must have been a police officer who died. And so I think that makes her go into this this memory of when her father had died. So yeah.
Yeah. So they're in there inspecting the body, and the scene's really good because she's talking into a recorder, but at the same time, you've got a guy going around with a camera that has a really old fashion flash that does the recharge sound.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So it's really cool, like sound mixing.
Yeah.
And the whole scene feels really dynamic and good. And it says that she tried to claw through something.
Yeah, because she looks under her nails, and that's where Clarice says, like, oh, she must have crawled through something.
Yeah.
Because she's missing fingernails,
Yeah.
and then there's stuff underneath them.
Right. And then she finds a cocoon in the mouth. And there's a old guy there who's like the funeral home director, and he's like, sometimes leaves get caught in their mouth when they find them in the river.
Yeah.
But she pulls it out, and it looks like a little bug cocoon.
Yeah, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And this is where she introduces us to her little bug friends.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't know them. That's the first time she's meeting them.
Well, who knows them then?
What the Crawford set her up.
Oh, okay.
He's like, these people that work at this museum. Because I think some people think that they're in the FBI too.
I don't think they are.
No, but maybe that was just me when I was younger.
Oh, okay.
But it's a museum, and they're entomologists, I think is what you call people who study insects. And she goes there, and she finds them playing chess with, like, beetles.
Yeah, which was kind of silly.
Yeah, and then she says something like, if the bug falls off the chessboard, is do you get more points for that? And he's like, yeah, how do you play? Like she would play that game or something. And,
entomologist.
Yeah, so she gives them the cocoon, and they go to look at it. And obviously they like her because she's pretty. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys was like talking, and the other guy says, like, don't even listen to him. He's not even a doctor or whatever. He's not a PhD. And then one of the guys hits on her who has like crossed eyes.
Yeah.
And
she turns them down. So every time that there's men around, they're like hitting on her. And even whenever she was at the funeral home, like the police were like, oh, we shouldn't talk in front of a woman.
Yeah. And they're staring at her and stuff too.
It's just to show like, oh, she's pretty, and like people don't think highly of women.
Yeah.
In this field. I mean, anywhere, but
yeah.
Anyway, that's another conversation.
But the bug guy kind of hits on her in a sort of a cute way. Mm-hmm. And it's not like disgusting or anything. He's just like, do you like cheeseburgers and beer? And I was like, dude, I like cheeseburgers and beer. Why don't you take me
I'll
on
take
a
date? I'll go on a date with you.
But she just is like, oh, are you hitting on me? Because like she sees them as nerds, so she can like kind of hold her own in that situation. Mm-hmm. And they're not in the FBI either, so
yeah.
We kind of see a different side of her in that. But he says it's a death head's moth, and it's from Asia. Yeah,
so they're not like, you could think, oh, well, maybe a moth like flew in her mouth or and like cocooned. Like, I don't know. We don't know how long she was there, because she was their first victim, but she was the second or third found. And so like we have no idea like how long she was out. Maybe an insect crawled in her mouth, or like it was a dead moth that was in a cocoon, and like when she was in the river, it was put like in her mouth through the river. You know what I mean?
You're really laying out these scenarios.
I don't know how to explain it.
Well, they tell us in the thing. He says this came from Asia. They don't grow naturally here, and he's like, somebody must have grown it.
And implanted it there.
Implanted it here. And that's
what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But you're going in a real roundabout way.
I know. I don't know why.
But anyway, the thing that like stuck out to me, the line was that he said like, yeah, somebody grew this guy. Somebody loved it.
Yeah.
You know? And you're like, oh, okay. And that line really grabs you and makes you think about it. Mm-hmm. And then it cuts to Buffalo Bill, and he's sitting at a sewing table naked, sewing. Mm-hmm.
And you see what he's sewing. It's not fabric. It looks kind of like really light leather.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the texture of leather. It just looks like leather thick. And then you realize, oh, that's fucking skin.
Yeah.
So he's sewing something with skin. And you also see a lamp that has a nipple on it.
Oh, yeah.
The lamp that he has next to him. It's a lampshade made of human skin.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
That's like Ed Gein stuff, right?
Yeah.
Ed Gein was the guy who made stuff out of body parts. Mm-hmm. But he was a grave robber. He wasn't like a true serial killer. He had schizophrenia, I think. So then it goes back to Quantico, and they see the news at Quantico, and the senator, whose name you remember the senator's name?
No, I can't.
I can't remember. But anyway, she's on the news, and she keeps saying Catherine's name over and over again.
Yeah.
And saying, like, she's a good girl, she's sweet, and all this stuff.
And there's also police watching this, and they're trying to make him care about her. Yeah. And make her seem like a person and not just skin, you know?
Yeah, they're trying to appeal to what little humanity he has. And Clarice says, like, that's a good idea. Kind of to hit the audience over the head, like, yeah, that is a good idea. Mm-hmm. And then I think she has to go back to see Lecter, and she runs into Chilton at the prison or whatever it is, and he's pissed off because she's going in there to talk to him, and he's not a part of it. Like, that's what's really he's bad about it, is he's not involved in this. Mm-hmm. The part of the investigation. So that shows what his personality is, and that he just wants to be known for something.
Yeah, and so she goes to see Lecter inside the room, and she she goes up to him and she's very blunt. Well, not blunt. She's like straight to the point.
Yeah, because now time is important.
Yeah, it's a ticking clock.
Yeah.
So she goes up to him. She's like, I need to know everything you know about Buffalo Bill. And I've talked to the senator, and she'll give you a room with a view. And she was very specific about like the details of.
Yeah, she says you'll get 1 hour a day of yard time where you can be outside, and then 1 week a year you get to go to an island where you're completely supervised, but you can go on the beach and even swim in the ocean.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't know yet, but this is all just fake. Mm-hmm. But what seems more interesting to Lecter is he wants to know more about Starling. Mm-hmm. Because he kind of can tell something about her past, but he wants to know more. So she agrees, and he says quid pro quo. Do you know what that means?
Yes. So it's like, you do this for me and I'll do this for you.
Yeah.
But it's a power. Like if we're on the same level, like this is how I learned it, because I'm a teacher. So if
this is in your sexual harassment classes
yes.
you have to take, but what I was getting at was it's French, and the translation is this for that.
Yeah.
But in America, we use it in sexual harassment stuff. So
yeah. So, but I want to explain it.
Okay, go ahead.
So when you take these classes, they're always like, okay, the difference between like when something turns to quid pro quo is when there is a power imbalance. So like if my boss was like, oh, I'll do this if you do this for me, that's right. Quid pro quo. I can't quid pro quo my boss, because
say
he's
quid pro quo 5 times fast.
I cannot. Quid pro quo. Quid pro quo. Quo?
Quid pro quo.
But I can't do that to my boss because my boss has the upper hand. You know?
Yeah.
So
that's what it goes down.
Yeah, it's a downward.
That would be fun. Remember the Governor Cuomo when he got popped for sexual harassment? Mm-hmm. That'd be funny if they were like, quid pro Cuomo. And so they begin to talk about her childhood, and she tells him that she was 10 when her father died. Mm-hmm. Right? And he asks her, did he die right away? And she's like, no, he hung on for a month. And then he tells her the significance of the moth, and it's transformative, because a caterpillar turns into a cocoon, turns into a butterfly or a moth. And then this is when he dumps the thing about saying like he's a transsexual. Mm-hmm. And Clarice comes back with transsexuals are not aggressive people. They're very passive. And he says he's not actually transsexual. He just thinks he is because of the abuse that he's suffered throughout his life. Now, this is really important. Like, if they hadn't got this right in the movie, this movie would probably be like canceled today if you were, because then it goes way too far into the pantheon of transphobia, right? So him saying that he's not actually a transsexual kind of saved this movie in a way, right? And then she says that she went to live on a sheep and horse farm.
Yeah.
And while this is going on, it cuts to Dr. Chilton, and he is taping them on a reel-to-reel and listening to the headphones. So he knows everything that's going on.
And when he's on his headphone, I mean, this also like makes my point earlier where he waited for everyone to be yelling to speak to her because he knew he was listening in.
Right. Oh my God.
Hello?
Did that really happen? Sorry. I can't believe my phone started. My phone is on silent, but my computer is linked to my phone, and my computer is not on silent. How embarrassing.
But he's listening in and he hears all of this. So he calls the senator to ask if what Starling told Lecter was true, which he finds out it wasn't true. Crawford made it up in hopes that he would give her information.
Right.
And he also uses another, what is it called? When you use like an acronym? That's not what it was.
Yeah. I don't know if the acronym comes up just yet.
Well, he does it several times.
Yeah. Oh, the Moffat was an anagram.
Anagram. That's what it is.
But the second one hasn't come up yet. And then this is when we cut to the famous scene, the famous line, it puts the lotion on the skin. Mm-hmm. So we are at Buffalo Bill's house and
we see the senator's daughter in like a deep well.
Yeah, she's in a dried up well that's dug in the basement. And he's got his dog. And the relationship with him and his dog is so funny. Mm-hmm. It's even funnier in the book.
Really?
Yeah, he talks to the way you talk to Giuseppe. It's like the way he does. He's like, "Come on, when I get finished sewing this, I'll give you a little chewy. You can have a nice chewy." How does that sound?
You want a little chewy?
Yeah, there's a lot more dog stuff in the book, which I like. But she's screaming at him like, "Let me out!" And like, my mom's a senator, and he's like, "Well," he just keeps going. If it puts the lotion on the skin, or else it gets the hose again. And then I think he says it to the dog. He's like, "We're going to get the hose, right?"
Yeah.
Something like that. But I remember not too long ago, I was telling you, like, does he really say that? Or is it one of those Mandela effect things? Because it sounds so weird.
Yeah. It puts the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again.
Yeah. But then we actually looked it up online, and you were right. That is exactly what he says verbatim. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can kind of see in his face, like he is like something is starting to creep in. Like he starts to get a little bit emotional. Yeah,
because she's like screaming. She's like, "I want my mommy," and she's trying to get his sympathy. And he's like, that's when he like yells it at. It puts the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again.
Right.
And so this is like the moment where she's like, "Fine," and she's like rubbing lotion, like she starts rubbing lotion on her skin.
Right.
And then he says, "It puts the lotion in the basket."
Puts the lotion in the basket.
I think he says it, and that's what's the weird part is he doesn't say like put the lotion on your skin.
Yeah.
He says it so he can disassociate her being a person.
Yeah. And then also, this is where she sees fingernails stuck into the side of the well.
Yeah, because there's a light on the basket so that she can see. And when he lifts it up, she sees the nails in the wall, and she starts screaming again. And then he starts imitating her scream, and he's like, "Ooh, I sound like a woman, right?"
Yeah, this is definitely like the creepiest part of the movie. To me, I think this is where people are like, "Oh, it's a horror movie," because you've got some girl trapped in a well, and all this stuff going on.
Also, whenever she sees Lecter that last time, when she brings this stuff, he says, "Love the suit," which I think is so funny.
Wait, he says that to Clarice?
To Clarice, "I love the suit."
He says that to the senator later. Does he say it twice?
I have it here, and then I have "Screaming of the Lambs."
Oh,
mine is in order.
I think you,
but I skip a lot of stuff.
Oh, okay. Because I don't think
maybe he does say it to the senator. Love your suit.
Oh, and senator, love the suit.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But then this is back when Chilton, now that he knows everything, he goes in there to Lecter, and he has him in a mask, and his nose is smashed down, and he's taking all his stuff. And he's like ridiculing him, and he's like, "You know that deal that was a fake. They're not actually going to do that." But I don't know if they want the audience to know just yet. Like, Lecter's not really doing all this specifically just for the deal. Mm-hmm. He also just likes Clarice, and he likes helping her solve the case.
It's something fun for him to do.
Yeah,
and he also has a key of like, I know who this person is, and so he has this like advantage, and I think he likes that thrill.
Yeah, totally. But also, he still hasn't revealed anything yet. So, or he's revealed very little. So he's like, I want to be able to tell the senator myself.
Yeah.
So they arranged for him to be sent to Connecticut, I believe it was. Yeah.
Because the what is his name?
Crawford?
No, the other guy.
Oh, Chilton?
Chilton. I was about to say Chitlins, and I was like, that's not right. Chilton says to him, like, I've called the senator, and she has made you a deal. And you can move to Cincinnati, and you can have a window.
Right.
But that's all you get.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And so he's like, okay, fine. But whenever I tell, like, I'm not going to tell you, I want to tell her. So whenever they fly him, they take him out. Well, he leaves the room and he leaves his pen.
Right.
Which is an important moment.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he left his pen in there. And he leaves out of the room. And then the next moment we see, is when Hannibal is being flown to Cincinnati.
Cincinnati?
Is that where it is?
I think Connecticut.
Connecticut. Started with a C.
Yeah, so...
Though Connecticut starts with a K, doesn't it? No.
Yeah, so they show a scene...
How do you spell Connecticut?
It's a weird spelling. I'm not going to try to spell it right now because I'm going to embarrass myself. But this is when they show Crawford, and he's like, yeah, the senator knows, but somebody is asking him about it, and he's like, look, I had to take a chance. But now she knows what happened, right? Because Chilton is a piece of shit. And then this is when it flashes back, like they've got Lecter at some sort of army base or something. In the background was a very specific military plane called a Sherpa. I used to work in a hangar with those when I was in the army.
Wow.
Yeah. They're really ugly planes. They look really weird. But anyway, I know nobody cares about that. So he goes to meet the senator, and he's got the famous mask on. You know, it's like a hard plastic with the little bars right where his mouth is. And Anthony Hopkins looked creepy as fuck in this.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how he did that with his eyes. They must have been like, we got to see how you look with his mask on before, right?
No.
Do you think he auditioned wearing
I don't think so.
in that weird refrigerator? That would be hilarious to me if you audition like that. You're in a straight jacket with that mask on.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I bet they were like, oh, he has really expressive eyes. That'll be perfect.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
In the book, do they describe the little mouthpiece thing?
I can't remember. I haven't gotten to that part yet. I'm only halfway through.
I thought you read it once and a half.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago, though.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it's in there.
So he tells the senator, love your suit.
Well, no,
after
there's more to this.
I know.
And he says, like, people are like, will he even tell her the truth? And they're like, yeah, because he respects her. And this is when we find out that Buffalo Bill killed his boyfriend because he knew too much. That he was going to probably eventually go to the cops.
Yeah. Also, whenever they were at the funeral home, this is where they see like the cut patterns in the back of the woman, and they're in these diamond shapes, like two pieces out of her back. And that's all he took, which is interesting, which we'll find out why later.
Okay. I don't remember this, so you'll have to tell me. And when Lecter finally meets the senator, he asks her, did you breastfeed her? And he's like, it toughened your nipples, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then he's like, will you feel it in your nipples when she gets stabbed or something like that?
Yeah.
And then she's like, get this piece of shit out of here or whatever. And as she's walking away, he describes what he looks like and where he might live.
Blonde hair, blah, 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 blah.
And he says his name is Louis. Do you remember?
Anywho.
So he gives a fake name, but it's another anagram. Right? And nobody figures it out. But then as she's walking away, he says, oh, and Senator, one more thing. Love the suit.
Love the suit. And I put, he's a fashionista.
Yeah, they show him reading a fashion magazine at one point.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly
I
where
think
it
that's
was.
fun about him.
Yeah, he is. He's totally into high-class stuff, like, food and clothing and travel and all that kind of stuff.
And whenever he says that to the senator, she says, send him back. So he goes back to...
Or he's going to go back.
Boston. No. Yes.
Baltimore.
I don't know places.
Clearly.
And so she, like, he's put into... they're going to put him in, like, this, like, cell in the middle of a room.
Yeah.
With high security.
Yeah, it's a makeshift cell while he's there. Before he flies back, he's probably going to go back to Baltimore. And then this is when Clarice shows up and she figures out the anagram and she says that your anagrams are showing. So also, I forget what the anagram stood for.
Also the quid pro quo. Quid pro quo. Whenever she meets with him, this is a moment where he says to her, like, she describes the screaming of the lambs, isn't it?
Yeah, this is that, but I'll get to that. But the anagram, I don't remember the guy's name, but the anagram is fool's gold. You rearrange the letters and it says fool's gold. So he sent them... Lewis something, right? Gould?
There's got to be an F in there.
I don't know. Anyway, and this is the part where he says... they try to figure out what he's doing, and he's like, what does he do? And she's like, he gets a thrill out of harming people, and goes, no, he covets. Mm-hmm. And what do you do to begin to covet? And
it's something close to home.
It's but
something you know.
They go back and forth a little bit before they get to that because of the quid pro quo thing, right? He's like, you need to tell me about what happened after your dad died. And she's like, I went to live on this ranch and I wasn't there for long because I woke up in the middle of the night to screaming sheep. Mm-hmm. And she tries to save one.
Yeah.
But she couldn't run away because it was too heavy.
My question is, why didn't they name the movie Screaming of the Lambs?
I don't know.
Because they never say Silence of the Lambs. He always goes the Screaming of the Lambs.
I know. I mean, I think silence it's a better word than screaming.
Well, that's what she was wanting, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, but it's the MacGuffin. That's what she's trying to silence those lambs. Mm-hmm. She's trying to keep us quiet, Erin.
Never will.
Never.
Suck our dicks, Clarice.
Suck our lamb dicks. So you find out that she was picked up by the police and she never even went back to the ranch. She got sent home to a girl's home. And Lecter's like, so you think if you save Catherine, it'll stop the lambs from screaming? Mm-hmm. Or it'll silence the lambs?
Because she has these like reoccurring dreams of them at night.
Right.
And so he's like, well, if you do this, then you'll silence those lambs. And I think she says like maybe for one night or something like that. I can't remember.
But this is when Chilton shows up and then she gets taken out because she's not really supposed to be on the case anymore. Mm-hmm. She's just doing this to do it. And in the book, even Crawford is taken off the case because his wife is dying. Mm-hmm. So they put him on compassionate leave. And he tells her that if you continue investigating this case, you're going to get most likely recycled. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to go through the FBI training again. Yeah. But none of that is in the movie. So
then the police, the people that are watching him are like, it's over. You're done. You can't be here anymore. And they're like pulling her away. And there's a lot of noise. So I can't really remember what is being said. But there's one point where she breaks away from them to get his name. But she never does get his name.
No. And she gets a piece of paper from him.
Yes.
And their fingers touch. Mm-hmm. And it's really, I don't know why
he like scratches her like
Yeah. But I don't know what the filmmaker was really going with that, but it looked good. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And then this is the part where the police bring him dinner. Mm-hmm. And he...
Do you remember what was on the paper?
No, I don't remember. Can't remember if it was a sketch or what. But... Oh, earlier when they show up for the first time in that hangar, mm-hmm. they asked Chilton for his pen, to sign something, and he's like, "Oh, I can't find my pen."
Yeah, right? So you're like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah,
Hannibal has it.
They're hitting it over the head twice, which is really great mm-hmm. screenwriting, right? To remind you, and maybe if you missed it, that he's missing his pen. So he goes over there to put his handcuffs behind. Put his hands outside of the cell to be handcuffed. Yeah. But before he does...
They say grab ground or something like that.
Yes. But before he does, they show the little piece of pin, it was the little clip that you put on your mm-hmm. shirt or whatever, that he's got that in his hand. And then he attacks the police after he takes his own handcuffs off. Mm-hmm. And he picks up a straight razor. And first he beats the guy with his own nightstick. Yeah. And you can tell that Lecter is really enjoying it. Mm-hmm. And there's blood splattering.
He's got a smile on his face.
Yeah. And then he picks up a straight razor and he says, "Officer Pembry, ready when you are," or something like that. And you're like, what the fuck is he going to do? Mm-hmm. Right? It's scary as hell because you don't know what he's going to do. And then downstairs in the elevator, they hear gunshots.
Yeah. Hannibal also bites one of their noses off.
Yeah, he bites one of the guys. Literally
their nose off.
Yeah, yeah, they show it too.
Yeah, that's gruesome. Yeah. I would say this is the most gruesome part of the whole movie.
So they hear gunshots downstairs and they're like, "What the fuck's going on?" So they run up there and they go in the room and they find one of the police officers hung up like an angel, mm-hmm. and Lecter's missing. And then they see Pembry over the side and he's alive, but he's in really bad shape.
And their face is all covered in blood.
Yeah, face is all covered in blood and there's bubbles coming out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. So they come in, they bring the SWAT team in and they ship out Pembry to the paramedics. And he's in an
ambulance.
Yes. And then they're looking for Lecter, or they think they are. So they're going down, they're bringing Pembry down in the elevator, and some drips come down from the ceiling, drips mm-hmm. of blood. And they're like, oh shit.
He's on top of the elevator car. And so they take Pembry off, quote unquote. And they are like, okay, well, let's look through the thing. And so they look over the side of a upstairs elevator and they see a body laying there and they're like, he's still he's not moving. And this is where you see the gurney in the ambulance and they're driving away and they're like, okay, well, shoot his leg. So one of the cops shoots his leg and there's no movement. Uh-huh. And they're like, oh shit, he's dead. And then we're back in the ambulance and Hannibal covered himself in blood on his face.
Yeah, and he sits up like the Undertaker, too, with all that, and pulls the skin off of his face.
Oh, yeah, because he sliced his face off to put it on himself.
Yeah, and he pulls off Pembry's face, and then we're finally like, oh, shit, Lecter tricked everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck? Everything's falling apart at this point.
Yeah.
And then they go back to Quantico.
Also, I want to say, the hanging of that man that was in a crucifixion, it was very elaborate. He had a lot of time to do that.
Yeah. He put bed sheets up and mm-hmm. aimed lights at it and stuff.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was truly beautiful. But I think what the whole thing is he was just trying to make it elaborate so that the police were completely disoriented when they mm-hmm. coming in, so they don't know what to do. And they don't realize that he's laying there with skin over his own face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes to Quantico, and Clarice Starling's roommate is on the phone, and she gets the news that Lecter has escaped.
Do you think that Hannibal shot the gun to get them to come upstairs?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah. In the book, they even theorized that he called the ambulance before everybody came up because he wanted it to get there faster. Yeah. So she runs down the hallway and she goes to tell Clarice what happened. And she's like, no, he won't come after me. He's like, I can't tell you why, but he would consider that rude.
Yeah.
Which is another great joke in this. I think we talked about it already, but
yeah. And so Clarice is like trying to figure out where Buffalo Bill is. And so she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go talk to this woman who worked with one of his first victim, because she knew that the first victim was someone he knew, which was the woman with the little diamonds out of her back. And so she goes and meets with her, this girl he's working at a diner, and she was like, yeah, we used to work together. We used to sew for Mrs. something another. Yeah,
he also searches one of the victims' house and bedroom, and he finds those Polaroids, or she finds those Polaroids in that little ballerina
we haven't gotten there yet.
No, that's first. That happens first. Then she goes and talks to the person in the diner. Yes, Erin, I've got it written down.
Okay.
I don't know why you won't let me just drive the show.
Well, the thing that I wanted to say was when she's in the room, she's looking at she's looking through her room. Oh, you're right. Okay, I know what you mean. So she's looking through that room and she sees like Polaroid pictures of herself naked.
Yeah.
That she was sending maybe to Buffalo Bill.
I think she was letting Buffalo Bill take them. Because he was coveting her, right?
Yeah.
So he probably went and talked to her.
Made her feel really confident.
Yeah. Because she's obviously not the type of person that someone's going to pursue. You know, you watch this. It came out in 91, so they're calling people fat who in this day and age would be not considered
normal,
fat.
very average.
Very average looking.
14 is a very average size for her body now.
Oh yeah, totally.
Anyways, so she looks in her closet and she sees a sewing pattern, and it's the diamond shape. So she realizes he's making a skin suit to make himself look like a woman.
Yeah.
And so she, like, the reason that you know that is because there's a sewing pattern. Maybe this is why you didn't understand it.
Maybe we missed it, but Hannibal Lecter says that he wanted to make a vest with boobs. Like he wanted to make he says that.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, I think he does. Maybe I'm conflating that with a book or something. But anyway, you're right. She sees that sewing pattern and she's like, oh shit.
He's making a pattern. Like, and it kind of, I think it flashes back to the diamond shape of the skin.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, he's making a woman body that he can wear. And so she calls Crawford and she's like, he's making a skin suit. That's what he's doing. That's why the diamond shape was there. And they're in a helicopter.
They're in like a C-17.
Okay.
Anyway,
whatever.
And they're on a plane. It wasn't even a helicopter. But he is. But
it had open sides.
What?
Like the sides were open. Yes, they were.
It was a plane. I swear it was. And he's like, we're going there to Chicago now because they found. Are you looking it up right now?
Maybe.
But they're going to Chicago because they found somebody who bought those embryos from Asia.
Yeah.
And since they don't know his name yet, they're assuming that's the guy, right? And
which he could have bought from somewhere else.
Yeah, but more than one person can buy moth embryos, right? Mm-hmm. So they think they've got them with this, right? It seems like a pretty sharp thing, but...
Well, they also have like a name with it, and they're saying like this is their name.
Yeah, but they don't know his name. Yeah, because they can just look up the name of someone who got something through customs, but I think they're just assuming that that's the guy because it's such a rare moth. Mm-hmm. But, It could be two people.
Maybe he bought it from them.
Oh, yeah.
Or he lived there when he bought it.
Yeah, that guy could have been a supplier for other people too. So,
yeah, but he also could have moved from that location because it didn't seem like anyone was in the house.
No, nobody was in the house. But that's a red herring, which is another thing in thriller movies is red herrings. There's a lot of red herrings in those. Mm-hmm. And Starling stays there to keep investigating, and instead of going to Chicago, because Crawford says, we don't need you here. She's like, all right. But then we cut to Catherine. She's in the well, and she has come up with an idea to escape.
Yeah, he gave her some, like, bone, like a little bit of meat on some chicken bones.
Yeah, he basically gave her scraps.
And so she ties them around this bucket that he brought to her with the chicken scraps. And then she kind of she's throwing it out. And
she's trying to lure the dog in.
Yeah. And this is the moment where we see the iconic goodbye horses scene.
The one that I reenact every night before I go to bed.
What?
Nothing. But she is like trying to get that dog. And in the book, they make a point to say that the dog is fat and overfed.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it loves food. And she throws it up there and finally gets the dog to grab onto it and pulls him down in there. Mm-hmm. And he breaks his leg falling down, I think.
Yeah, she says that. I don't know. We don't know if that's actually true or.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think they could have broken the dog's leg to make it act that way.
No, I'm saying, like she says, his leg is broken real bad. He probably needs a vet. But we don't actually see that the dog is hurt.
Oh, yeah, yeah. She
so
could just be
been
lying.
making it up.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. And this is the part where he says, I'd fuck me. And I think it's funny that, it's through, he sets up a camera to shoot himself. And we're looking through the POV of that camera that he set up. And like they don't show it, but you can tell that you can see from the way his arms and his shoulders are moving that he's tucking his sack back.
Yeah. So he's like dancing around. I don't know what causes him to go in there.
I don't remember either, but first it flashes back to Starling, and she is in the diner talking to the townie, and she's all impressed, and she's like, "Wow, you're in the FBI? That must be really cool." Mm-hmm. I think she said something about wanting to get out of that town or whatever. But this is where she finds out that there's a lady who's a seamstress named Miss Lipman.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if Buffalo Bill worked for her or if it was that one victim. Do you remember?
The two, like the girl and her used to sew for her.
Okay. All right.
And so that's how they knew her.
Which is why she found the patterns in her house.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know how Buffalo Bill is. I can't remember how he's associated with her. I don't know if like she's his aunt or something. There's some relation between him and Miss Littman because he takes over her home. Or he probably killed her. Yeah,
he did. That's who they find in the bathtub.
How does he know Miss Littman?
I don't know. They never say.
Maybe he also sewed for her?
Probably. I mean, he knows how to sew.
Yeah.
So maybe.
So maybe.
It makes sense. And then it shows the cops like running up outside. Oh, no, he hears the dog crying. Mm-hmm. So he goes down in there and he finds out that she had pulled the dog down in the well and he's freaking out. He doesn't know what to do. And then his doorbell, we see cops like
swarming
moving in on a house, right? And they're like pretending to deliver flowers and all this weird shit. And then we see a doorbell ring. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh shit, the SWAT team is there at his house.
Yeah.
And they do such an amazing job of concealing this. Because if this is the first time you've seen the movie, you have no idea that it's Clarice Starling there and that it's Miss Littman's house. Mm-hmm. So he goes upstairs and finds her there. And then it cuts back to Crawford and they're like, the house is empty, sir. And he's like, oh shit, Starling, she's in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So she starts asking him questions like, do you know Miss Lippman? And he's like, just trying to get rid of her. Mm-hmm. And
is he though? I think he knows that she's suspicious of him because he finds out that she's FBI real fast.
Yeah, but I think at first he just comes to the door and he's like, no, I don't know. And then he tries to shut the door on her, but then she goes, I need to ask you some questions or something. So he's like, okay.
She knows.
Yeah, she knows, which at that point, he's like, I'm going to have to kill her. Mm-hmm. Right? So he doesn't know how he's going to do it. So he's just trying to stall.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, I think I have like a phone number for her because she moved away and she gave me the house. And so he's like looking through these cards, like calling cards. That used to be a thing. And he's kind of making conversation. He's like, so you working on the Buffalo Bill case? And she goes, yes. And he's like, do you know any information? She leads on. She says no. To not like.
Yeah, he says, I think she says like, I can't share that with you. Or
no,
something.
I think she says, no, we don't know what he looks like. Because he asks, do you know what he looks like or his name? And she says no.
And this
which
is
isn't
another
a lie.
This is another real serial killer thing too. Like a lot of serial killers try to get involved in their own cases so they can find out information. Usually it backfires on them.
Yeah.
But also another interesting thing is like she sees a painting of butterflies by her head and she's like, oh shit. And they talk some more, and then she sees like one of the actual moths.
Yeah,
so she
fly
knows,
around,
right?
and she's like, "Oh, this is his. This is him."
Yeah. And
so she unlocks her gun so that she can draw it quickly, and then I think he like does something.
He holds up all the cards and he starts dropping them and laughing. Mm-hmm. You know, and then he like runs because they show that he had a gun in the kitchen.
Yeah. And so she like draws her weapon because he runs away to go grab the gun. And she's like, put the weapon away, like hold your hands up. And then she follows him down to the basement.
Yeah. And then she comes across Catherine and she's like, get me out of here. This is another kind of funny part.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to need you to be quiet so I can get you out of here. And she yells,
you
like,
fucking bitch.
Yeah. Which you can't blame her.
Yeah.
She's been down there for like at least 48 hours at this point. So then he shuts off the lights in the basement.
Yeah. So it's pitch black and she's feeling around. And then it's super suspenseful. This moment, it feels like it goes in slow motion.
Yeah. I mean, your heart rate's up during this part.
Yeah. And you hear the buzz of the night vision goggles.
Which the night vision goggles don't make noise, but
okay. Anyways, thanks for ruining the magic. So like we hear the night vision start, and then we see him. Well, not him. We see her like feeling around in the dark.
And this part looks good too.
It looks really cool.
I don't know how they shot this. They must have put Jodie Foster in a real dark room, and it must have just been real.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how else you would be able to shoot it. Mm-hmm. She's probably just really feeling around in the dark.
And he's like, at one point, like she seems very frightened, but he's like grabbing at her. Like almost touching her.
He's coveting her.
He is.
If you will.
And then there's some type of moment that happens.
She hears the hammer of the gun.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's got a big ass, like, what do you call it? 357 or something like that. Big ass revolver.
Also, before the lights turn off, she goes into this little closeted room. It's like a bathroom. And she sees Mrs. Lippman's decaying body in a bathtub, which was super creepy to see. And that's when the lights turn off, which makes it even more scary because you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. And then this is kind of interesting to me. What really saves her life is what has been holding her back all this time. Like she is constantly being stared at by men and being hit on by men. Since she's so pretty, he's looking at her through the night vision goggles, just long enough to be able to covet her. And that's what gives her the moment to be able to kill him.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting...
He clicks the hammer of the gun, and she turns around and shoots. And you just see light. So you're not sure, did he kill her? Or did she kill him?
Yep, like a piece of cardboard gets shot out of the basement window. So now there's light is flooding in, because most basements have like a little tiny window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then we see him like shaking on the ground, and he's bleeding. He's got like 5 bullet wounds in him. And then it cuts to the FBI is there at the house now. They found the right house this time. Mm-hmm. And Catherine is walking out, and she's holding the dog, which is pretty funny to me. And then it cuts to graduation. So it shows Clarice Starling graduating, which I don't remember if she does in the book. But another funny thing is like the 2 Bugners, the entomologists, are there.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, she did it.
Yeah, and they're also like kind of hitting on her roommate a little bit. They're like, hey, let's take a picture with her roommate.
Yeah.
Because her roommate's real pretty too.
And so then someone comes and says, Starling, you have a call. And so she goes to the phone, and you're not expecting you don't know who it is.
Well, on the way there, she runs into Crawdaddy, as I put him in my notes.
Mm-hmm. Crawfish?
Crawford, yeah. Crawfish.
People call him Crawdaddy.
And he thanks her, and he's like, look, I couldn't have done it without you. Mm-hmm. And you realize at that moment, like, no, he was never really after her, because he would have made his move at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So he actually thanks her and says, I couldn't have done it without you. And then she goes to the phone.
Mm-hmm. And when she answers the phone, it's Lecter on the other side. And we see Lecter in another country. He's like wearing like a hat and like
I believe
sunglasses.
It's Jamaica.
I don't know.
I think it is.
And he's saying like how he's like on vacation. And that this is, I think, when he says like the world is like the world wouldn't be as fun without you in it.
Right.
Which is real cute.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm going to go meet.
I'm going to have an old friend for dinner.
Yeah, I'm going to have an old friend for dinner.
And as he's saying that line, you see Chilton get off a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a boat.
I don't know what it was. And then he's like, I guess, walking to follow him.
Yeah.
So he went after Chilton.
Yeah. And this is why the next movie, Hannibal, I think the reason it got made is because people were like,
what does he do?
Yeah, this is a really satisfying ending for Clarice, but not for Hannibal. Mm-hmm. So you really want to see what happens next. And I don't blame people for wanting that, but that movie sucks.
So, yep, that's it.
Yep, that is Silence of the Usses.
Of the We.
Yes. Erin, on a scale of 1 to 9 cat lives, 1 being the least and 9 being the most, where do you rate Silence of the Lambs?
9 cat lives.
No, oh boy, jeez.
It's a really good movie. It's hard to think of any flaws because it's
damn near perfect.
It's iconic. And it is such a fun movie to watch once you get to an age that it's not super scary. But it's a really awesome movie. I've always loved this movie. Ever since I've seen it, I've been like, this is a really fantastic movie. So yeah, 9 cat lives. Joey, what do you rate this movie? Do you give it 1 to 9 cat lives, 1 being the least, 9 being
the most?
The most.
Most amount of cat lives you can get. I'm definitely giving this like a 9.5.
9.5. It's off the scale.
It's off the scale. No, I'm not gonna do that thing. Wait, I hate it when shows do that. They come up with a rating scale and then they decide to break the scale, and then they have to keep on breaking the scale.
Yeah.
For other movies, it gets a 9 cat lives. Like, and of course it does. It won a shit ton of Academy Awards. It is on everybody's top 100 list. It's as perfect as a movie can get, in my opinion. And that's really just all you can say about it. And the source material is really good.
I want to read the book now.
Yeah, the audiobook is especially good. The reader for the audiobook is amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he's a really, really great voice actor or whatever, because he does the different voices.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's normal for audiobooks, but this guy's really good. And it's just great. That's all I can really say about it. And there's plenty of people out there who agree with me.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know why. I mean, so many people have said it better. I don't need to say anymore.
So yeah, that is our rating for the movie. Joey, I have a little game for us to play, and I'm calling this one real or fake. I don't know. Fact or fiction. Let's call it that, I guess.
Okay.
I came up with a name yesterday, and then we didn't finish filming, and it left me, and because I didn't write it down. So yeah.
Always write it down.
So what this is I'm going to describe serial killers that are in movies or in real life, and you have to tell me like what, if they're real or fictional, and if they are real, you have to tell me who it is, and if it's fictional, you have to tell me what movie. And if you can remember their name.
Oh my God, I can't wait to do this.
Okay. Joey likes true crime a lot. I mean, I like true crime a lot too.
Yeah. But I'm a true crime fan. I was really obsessed with it for like 5 years.
Yeah.
But after so long, you kind of hear all the good cases.
Yeah.
But I'm also very fascinated by serial killers. So this, and I'm a movie guy too. So this
and
is
he's also
fun.
a serial killer. I thought that's what you were going to say. And I'm also a serial killer. Anywho's, okay. So this first serial killer is located in London. They slashed the necks of his clientele. Okay. And he had a downstairs neighbor who cooked them into pies.
Was this that Johnny Depp musical?
Well, he wasn't originally in it. I think Angela Lansbury was in the original. But yes, it's a fictional character.
I can't remember the name of the movie, though. The movie's like,
Barbara of Fleet Street.
yeah, I don't know the name of it.
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd, yes. Yeah, famous musical. I would love to see it on stage, but I could not sit through that Johnny Depp one.
Who was in it recently? There was God. Oh, Sutton Foster was recently Mrs. Lovett, who's the one that makes the pies.
Oh.
Anyways, so this next person was a man who the man was left on his family farm and created shrines of in like different quarters, all of them about his mother. The police found 13 years later items made out of body parts, even wall hangings. There was even a vest made of a human torso. There were officially 2 murders and several other unsolved that they think he was part of.
Yeah, this is easy. It's Ed Gein. Or Gein, whatever they say.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it Gein or Gein?
Yeah, he, for all you film people out there, he is the guy that Psycho is based off of, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and parts of Silence of the Lambs. So he inspired a lot of media.
Wow.
And he's interesting.
I don't know that much about him. I feel like I've listened to a podcast about him, but it's hard to remember all what was said about him.
I don't know a shit ton about him, but they theorize that he suffered from schizophrenia. So voices telling you to do things, hallucinations. He wasn't like some stone cold psychopath like a lot of serial killers are. He was just a very disturbed man. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So this next person was also a doctor from Britain. Not also a doctor. He was a doctor, and he is also from Britain, who killed 71 of his patients at their first practice, and then their second practice, at least double. There was a consistency in the patients that were elderly women who were sitting up and were fully clothed, even though they were on their deathbed.
What? I don't know this one.
Do you think it's real or do you think it's fiction?
I'm going to say it's fiction because you said he killed 71 people, and that's a pretty high number.
Yeah. And then double that, at least double in their second practice.
Yeah. I'm going to say that's fiction.
Sorry, I'm going back to it because I can't remember his name. It's a real person.
Oh, really?
His first name starts with an H, and his second name starts with an S. I had it in my...
Harold Schechter.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, while you're looking for that, I'll just say this movie got criticized. Silence of the Lambs got criticized for being homophobic and transphobic. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't think it is. I think the author pulled stuff from real life.
Yeah.
And Buffalo Bill's gay in this, but there's a surprisingly high number of serial killers who are gay.
Oh, yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah. So, and you think well, that's kind of a fucked up thing to say, right? And it's really just because it's men. Mm-hmm. Male serial killers are always, it's something sexual, right? Female serial killers usually kill for financial gain of some sort.
Yeah. What is that guy's name? Anyways, okay, I'm going to tell you the next one. This was a silent murderer who started their killing spree in high school. Silent? They were mute. As a killer. They spoke whenever they were around friends or other people.
Okay.
But they were silent in their killings. They masked themselves literally as well as masking their voice to call their victims before.
Is this Scream?
No. That's the movie. What's his name?
Ghostface Killer?
Yeah, Ghostface. Okay.
This is fun. I like this.
I think so too. I'm looking up in my phone. It says, "What are haunches?"
What are haunches?
Okay. This was a Wall Street banker who idolized Donald Trump. Was meticulous about cleanliness and health, but developed an addiction to drugs, raping his victims, and torture.
Is this American Psycho? Christian Bale?
Mm-hmm. Do you know his character's name?
No, I don't remember what his character's name is.
It starts with one of them starts with a P.
P. I don't know. I do love that movie though.
Yeah, that's another really, really great movie.
I think that's the first thing I ever saw Christian Bale in.
God, I cannot find serial killers.
Paul Allen. I want you to refer to me as Paul Allen. Remember that Menendez Brothers thing we were watching?
Yeah.
The mom was his secretary in that movie.
Really?
Yeah. I remember putting the face with that when we were watching that show. I never said anything.
One of them that I read, it said that it was an inspiration for Psycho. It was the doctor one. Let me see. He was a married family man who managed to squeeze 218 murders, for sure, and then possibly 250.
That's crazy.
He was finally in 1998. An undertaker and a doctor noticed the unusual high numbers of cremation certificates. Oh, his last name was Shipman. Harold Shipman, maybe?
I don't know. I never heard of that guy.
It is Harold Shipman. Shipman, not shit man. Well, I mean, but he was a shit man. But the majority of the women were found sitting up and were fully clothed, not in bed, as they would usually be when they're gravely ill. Because these were all really ill patients. And so he was killing people that were, I guess, going to already die. Uh-huh. So that's the reason he was able to get such high numbers, was because he was killing people that were close to death anyway. So people weren't pointing a finger at him.
Wow, I've never heard of this guy.
It's really interesting.
Huh.
I can't remember. One of them, it said that he was...
It's an estimated 284.
Yeah. Oh, 84.
Yeah. Well, that's what this is saying. Like, sometimes people really lean into, like, serial killers' numbers too much, and there is just no evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, people will say, like, Dean Corll could have killed, like, 50 people, but there's only really enough evidence
to put him in.
Yeah, 29.
Yeah, that was the same thing
29
with 29
at the most.
I thought I had Ed Gein on. Oh, yeah, dude. But he officially was, because he was a grave robber, like you said.
Yeah.
But there were 2 murders that he for sure did. And then there were several that are unsolved cases that they think he's associated with, but they can't pin it on him.
Yeah.
But they think he is.
But what I've found with most of those is, like, it's just people wanting to make up shit. Just want to make it seem worse.
Oh, or I think it's also people that are like, let's give these people closure. Like, they don't know what happened to them.
Maybe.
They don't know how they died or if they're even dead. They may be missing.
Mm-hmm. But that can also be really cruel too.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
I mean,
like,
also,
they
like,
do, like, a lot of people will lean into, like, if like some serial killers will, like Henry Lee Lucas,
mm-hmm.
he confessed to killing like 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just doing it because the cops would give him coffee and cigarettes and take him places.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And then for a long time, people were like, yeah, he actually killed that many people. But then true crime community started saying, like, oh, well, actually the story about him lying is more compelling than just having a guy with that many, impossible number of murders. So I just really hate it when people lean into it too much like that. Like, you need to have evidence.
Yeah.
You need to have some sort of connection.
But yeah, 71, even in itself, like at his first practice, that, like, he was probably in the beginning parts of it and was like, oh, this is easy to do. And then when he went to his second practice, he was like,
yeah,
let's double it up.
I don't know. I'm gonna look at that case because I've never heard of it, but I'm interested now.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it too.
Yeah.
Okay. That is it for us on this podcast. If you want to message us, if you want to write in and say, hey, watch this movie, you can message us at joeyanderinpod@gmail.com.
Yep. So come talk to us because nobody ever emails us. We miss you guys. I've noticed there's been quite a few more downloads of this podcast recently. So, if you're listening to us, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank
you. Please write into us. I promise we won't be mean to you.
Yes.
Unless you're mean to us first.
Yeah, we're very nice people. Even if you are mean to us, we probably won't reply.
Yeah, we'll probably just ignore you if you're mean to us. But if you actually have something to say, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to slay and neuter your cats. See you next time. Bye.